Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to see you on a Monday.
Thank you.
Let's catch up on some Super Bowl NFL right now. You got a team? Who you riding?
The team I've been for 2 or 3 years, or a couple of years, Kansas City Chiefs. And yesterday, they got behind 24-0, and I thought, this is just tragic because they're so good on offense, and they were better on defense, but they can't catch a punt. They can't avoid a block kick. They're snake bitten, and I turned it off. And when I went on Twitter 30 minutes later, they were up 31-24, and I thought I'd had some sort of time lapse. Something happened to them because it didn't seem to have been enough interim for them to do so. I understand I missed a lot of action.
You did. If you took off for that quarter, apparently
I'm
you missed quite a bit.
I'm rooting for Kansas City and Green Bay, and you get the 2 State Farm quarterbacks with the agent. I think that would be a good Super Bowl.
All right, Arkansas has already filled its football coaching vacancy with Sam Pittman, but Jimmy Johnson, Hall of Fame.
Did you see that
quarterback? I did. I watched it. I just happened
to
be watching it when it happened. I didn't realize it was coming.
He blubbered. It was
a
quite
tear in his eye right
quite
there.
An emotional
was there a
thing.
tear in your eye?
No, I don't. Some things make me cry, like Geico commercials, but
and Hallmark movies.
And Hallmark.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not going there. Right.
But no, that didn't. But I was happy for him. You know, he carried the Cowboys, coached them to 3 Super Bowls, I think.
Won a college football championship as a player, won a college football championship as a coach, and a Super Bowl.
And I heard from him, I think the most operative thing about how to coach. When it was with the Cowboys and they would play on Sunday, he said, the world ends Sunday night. You never think about anything but the next game. It's just get this done because that's the last thing that will happen in the world. And I think that works, that kind of focus works in all endeavors.
Does it work for newspaper columns?
Yes. The world ends after you finish Tuesday's column. Now, if the world continues to go on, then you can set the new deadline for when Wednesday's column is due. And that way you give intense focus to the task at hand. I recommend that to everybody.
I like it.
If they're capable.
All right. Monday morning, there is a hearing up at the state capitol led by State Senator Trent Gardner on Arkansas allowing refugees to locate here. Give me the background on this story. How did we get to this point?
Well, as you know, it begins, just hit the high points. The Trump administration is generally unwelcoming to refugees, has tried to reduce the number of refugees. And refugees are not illegal immigrants, not even legal immigrants. Refugees are not asylum seekers lined up at the border. These are people from war-torn countries or persecution, largely African or some Mideast countries, Afghanistan, who in the Trump administration has severely tightened the screening with all security screening, and they're a lot fewer than there used to be. And a few years ago, there were a lot of Syrian refugees, and Asa Hutchinson, the governor, said we're not assured of the security with these people, and we don't want to participate in receiving any. The Trump administration said to states, of the refugees we clear, you can opt out. You don't have to take any. And they made it passive. If you don't do anything, then you don't have to take any. But if you send a letter by January 20 to Mike Pompeo that you will accept them, that's okay. 44 states have done so. 15, 16, 17 Republican governors among them, maybe more. Only Texas, as far as I know, the Texas governor has said no. Asa Hutchinson, right before Christmas, sent a letter and released it. Yes, we are welcoming, and we trust the Trump administration screening. We will continue the status quo, essentially. Refugees can still come here, but only through an approved agency, Canopy, Northwest Arkansas, and only for work within a 90 or 100-mile radius of that facility or that service. Trent Gardner got upset. He's a very right-wing, Tom Cotton-ish state senator, young and aggressive. He said, we don't know who these people are. Where did this come from? I had questions. And he wanted a legislative inquest, and he got it this morning. And the governor came over, presented some African and Afghanistan refugees brought down by Canopy, told their compelling stories. Their families killed, they were jailed for a time, presented each of them.
Did you sense that mollified some of the legislators that had angst about this?
No, because the complaints, it turned out, were 2. One from Trent Gardner, hey, those are touching stories and nobody would kick these people out. But, and you say this is only to this refugee service in Northwest Arkansas, but what happens if they decide to move around? Do other cities then have the right to decide, as Fayetteville and Springdale has, if they will accept them? The answer to that is no. In a free and open society, if they've cleared your super duper tough president, Trump's clearance and security clearance, and they've landed here in the country and they've received services, they can then go elsewhere. It's called freedom. And as I put on Twitter this morning, there seems to be an odd fright here. I think you're safer with an African refugee next door, statistically, and really, than you are in the Arkansas deer woods, I think. I just, and then Terry Rice said, hey, when this happened, all my people are calling and I didn't know what to tell them. And he's saying, I understand these compelling stories and we all support that, but I didn't know what to say. Why didn't you give us more of a heads up? Okay, maybe the governor should have, rather than just talk to legislative leadership and the ones in Norfolk.
On the status quo?
That's what I put on Twitter. Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
That's remarkable. I said, how many?
That's the logic. So.
Yeah. I mean, Roby, just 10 minutes ago, I sat on the sidewalk waiting on you to get here and said, how frequently is the governor supposed to brief legislators on the status quo? Okay. That's what happened. There'll be no effect of this. The governor had to leave early and go to a ribbon cutting where I think you were.
Correct.
And I don't know what kind of potential demagoguery or fear-mongering or just legitimate, if misplaced, concern took place after that. But he made a good presentation and he stood his ground and
it seems like there
had
could be
facts in his
It seems like there could be no policy change, though. I mean, it is going to be some federal law, number one, that's going to trump some of this stuff, and number two, if the status quo is there and they're not in session, there's really not.
There's
much
nothing
of a,
they can do except.
change,
I'm sure they told their constituents when the news went out. Governor says refugees can come here, and everybody and these constituents are thinking that Iranian and Syrian terrorists are going to come here. They can say they did something, and they can express some misplaced, fear-based concerns.
Maybe the headline should have said that refugees can still come here or something like that. So,
well, that's right.
Let's move on to the horse that we beat every week in terms of impeachment.
Really?
So I had Senator Bozeman on the television show yesterday. He basically said it's okay for the president to investigate corruption, it's okay for him to withhold aid, and it's okay for him to stonewall or stall Congress if these things happen, sort of thing. Are you at all surprised by the justification for some of the things that Trump is being impeached for?
Am I at all surprised by
Senator Bozeman's response?
No. I think the case is made largely. We know what Trump did. Either you legitimately think it's impeachable and horrible, or you think it's borderline, or you're a Democrat and it doesn't matter, you want him out, or you're a Republican Trumpian defender and it doesn't matter. John Bolton could lay the case out in live testimony on the Senate floor in a compelling way. Would it change a Republican vote? I don't think so. This bet has been made between Trump and the Republicans in the Senate, so it's not going to amount to anything. And now, well, I was getting ready to change to my disdain over Nancy Pelosi's failed tactic. But
well, you may go ahead and do that. So why do you think that her tactic has failed?
I had a conversation, I'm writing about this tomorrow. I was interviewing the governor, and we got off on this thing, and he said, and he'd been in House impeachment prosecutor, so I was availing myself of his experience. And we were talking about it, and he said, I'm just stunned. This had just happened, that Nancy Pelosi has said she's going to hold these articles of impeachment. This is like, she'll pay a high price for this, because this is like arresting a man and bringing a criminal charge in a highly public way and then refusing to give him his day in court. She'll pay a high price for this. And then he said, what do you think? And I said, I think it'll be a wash, because I think just as outrageous as you see that, and as it may be, Mitch McConnell and the senators predetermining acquittal is similar, and it'll all be a political wash. And I thought Nancy Pelosi had a plan. And I thought if she has to, she'll just hold them forever. Once you hold them for a while, just hold them until you get some tangible result. This week, she's going to send them over, having secured, so far as I can tell, nothing. Mm-hmm. once again, the Democrats have displayed utter ineptitude, which is why we have Democratic ineptitude and Republican enabling. That's what gives us this president. And I blame each equally, and this is an example. There's some, maybe, what's her name from Maine? Collins. Maybe Collins and Romney and Murkowski and one other will vote with the Democrats to have witnesses. If you're depending on that, if that's what you claim as victory, I would remind you that Susan Collins always talks a good game but votes Trumpian. Always does. You don't have any John McCain's
well, she's
there
mad
anymore.
right now, too, because she thinks Chuck Schumer is trying to obviously
And
take her
beyond
seat
that,
from her, and he
right.
is. So,
And beyond that, as Governor Hutchinson said, he wanted to call witness. He wanted to call Vernon Jordan live to test. And at that time, Daschle and Trent Lott, the leaders of the Senate, bipartisan, got together and said, no, we're not going to, this is decorum. It matters who gets on the floor of the U.S. Senate. They were afraid Monica Lewinsky would be next. And so they
there have been a lot of depositions, though, of a lot of witnesses.
That's where I was headed.
Yeah,
they said, okay, Vernon Jordan has been deposed. If you have fresh questions, you may do a private deposition. And he did so. And then if you, in your argument or your presentation to the Senate, you may quote line 17 through 31, join me like a preacher with the scriptures in a sermon, and read, which is not nearly as compelling as having the actual testimony, but at least they did that. They could do that here. They could say, but the Republican out is, and here's McConnell's out. We're going by the Clinton rules, and in those days they only had 3 depositions, and they were only to supplement previous investigative testimony that those 3 had given. In this case, Pelosi is insisting that the Senate, he can say, do their work that they should have done, but by interviewing people that refuse to submit to interviews with them. So it's all going to come to the typical knot, and this political dynamic, I think, shall remain the same.
It's time for us to find some additional political topics. This is my challenge to us. Next Monday,
I just did.
We don't talk about impeachment at all.
Well, but we can say that, but there'll be some. I mean, you almost have to mention that Nancy Pelosi has caved, don't you? Doesn't that have to be mentioned today?
Yeah. No. I agree.
And yeah, but the themes, Democratic ineptitude and Republican enabling. I mean, that's just the
Barring
that's the story.
something major, we don't talk about impeachment next week.
And at least we led with the state issue about refugees.
Always good to visit with you.
Take care, man.
John Brummett, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Thank you. That's all for today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.